Good whenever this is, which I don't know. Not legal advice. Like, subscribe, share. Again, animals, especially large dogs. I've never mentioned that. It had to be large dogs, but it's any dogs, but large dogs in particularly like this. Uh, Certainly not legal advice. Don't rely upon anything I say here. Hopefully, it provides some direction and something for you to look into further. So, wanted to talk today, and it's going to be see how fast I can talk, whether I'm going to do one video or two. So, I'm planning on doing a video about the FAQ or FUQ, as I call it, from Finra yesterday about MMTLP, and also about Alpine and the decision that came down from the SEC yesterday. I plan on doing both, but we'll see how we go for time. And if it's taking too long and I'm meandering, then I'll do it as two. So here we go. So how does let's just cut to the chase. So how does NASA organize a company party? Of course, they plan it. And last but not least, teamwork is important because it helps place the blame on someone else. Anyway, I saw the FAQ from here. It is. As a matter of fact, here it is. FAQ with all the yellowish stuff shows that at least I yellowed it. I may not have read it, but I yellowed it and colored it. Isn't that pretty? Anyway, I reviewed it to some degree. I got to a point where, at which point in time, it became less valuable to even read, so I stopped. Or, I mean, I read the whole thing, but I stopped being critical because it wasn't important at some point. Um, but kind of my observations on it and about it. First of all, why are they arguing again for the third time? Why is this the third again? I call it a FUQ, but they call it an FAQ. Third one. If there's nothing there, why are you talking? It's like the proverbial saying, "Doubt protest too much." In other words, if there's nothing here, you should be not making a position. But here you are again defending what occurred. Why are you doing that now? What has happened? What is pushing you? It certainly suggests there's pressure on FINRA, or else they wouldn't be coming up with these purported explanations. And kind of they minimize it by saying that there's been some call for some continuing questions about the short positions. I'm summarizing them, of course. And you can imagine how many inquiries there have been about that. And they purport not to know what a counterfeit share is. But in essence, and I kind of went through it, there was several categories, starting with category number 12. And basically what they're asserting is that the number of shares that went to AST was about 165 million. That's what everybody says did go, and therefore there's nothing. I'm of course paraphrasing, but they're saying that based on publicly available documents, which documents I don't know because they don't really cite them directly, but they assert that everybody says that 165 million shares went to AST and from the brokers, etc., but they do not in any point reference what the total number of shares outstanding was. And it's absurd to me that they, again, try misdirection by focusing on a non issue. What went or should have gone are two different things. So the amount of shares that may have gone, they're asserting the 165 million, although I think AST now asserts there's more than that. But let's say it's correct. That has nothing to do with the total number of shares outstanding. So I kind of did not understand. I didn't understand that. And they seem to suggest that only the issuers could issue shares, but by definition, the naked shorts would not be issued by the issuers. So did not make a lot of sense to me, to be quite honest. Just seemed to be a hide the ball attempt as they've done everything else. Category number 13. So again, it related to total shares that had been given to AST as opposed to what the actual share count was and should have been. They didn't draw a distinction between that, and didn't make any sense. But anyway, move on to number 13. can Finra perform an audit to determine the share count? And here and remember, the SEC has Palantir technology software used to trace and figure out insider trading, manipulative trading, etc. So they could all find the information out. But in this one, Finra's claim is they can't do an audit because they don't have any jurisdiction over the transfer agent. They say that the SEC has jurisdiction. So just taking that one step farther, that means that the SEC could perform an audit over the transfer agent, and I guess over all of the companies involved. That's by implication. But so let's leave that. On top of that, FINRA does not indicate why it can't perform an audit on MMAT and the former MMTLP, NextBridge, and any related companies. It just leaves that blank. And what it does, it shifts focus to the blue sheets. Now, I did a bunch of videos about the blue sheets, and blue sheets, limited in time and scope, won't give you the entire share picture. So in essence, if you ran the blue sheets for 5 days, that would give you all the transactional history for that 5 days, but it wouldn't necessarily show or demonstrate how that security had been handled over the course of its life. But if you pulled the blue sheets for the entirety of that time, it would. So I guess they forgot that part. And beyond that, there's other means by which they could identify the share count. Again, they have Palantir technology software, which the SEC paid millions for, which would enable to them, they could ask the brokerages. They did ask for the brokerages, obviously, before. And just to, for me, be interesting to ask, I'll direct that to the next question. So they don't really answer the question. So could they do an audit? Of course they could. They could ask all the companies involved, and the companies said yes, they certainly could. They could work with the SEC to do an audit, and obviously they assert that the SEC can do audits. So don't really understand their response to that either. Number 14 talks about the short position, and they're basically saying, everybody was claiming, and they use the term social media multiple times in a way to demean the point, I believe. But they basically say, contrary to social media, there's, by our estimates, and again, they say they can't do an audit, they don't have access to documents, but somehow they've been able to figure out and estimate that out of the 165 million shares, and again, remember, the 165 million shares is not a legitimate number either, that as or about December 11th, there were 2.65 million short shares. Again, they don't indicate, although they indicate that they use some regulatory, they did something regulatory after the fact to make that estimation. They don't describe what that regulatory activity is, and they don't describe what documents they use, but they indicate that as of December 12th, 2022, they estimate, based upon this magic 2.65 million shares of the 165. And then they give a percentage, I think it's like 1.61%. And of course, that 165 is not established anywhere. And I believe to the contrary, most people believe that the share count, the actual share count, is substantially more. And I believe that evidence, well, let me say it this way. Hopefully that evidence will be proven. And so I'll leave it at that. So the calculation assumes the 165, but beyond that, we know that the shorts, whatever short numbers, and they're basing their calculation partly upon the short reports, the report of short shares that were made. But we all know that those short reports don't include shorts that are offshore, out of the country, that have been tokenized, that have been marked long, and we know, and others, and we know all of those have occurred and likely have occurred with regard to MMTLP. So again, the fact that the shorts have been properly counted, that they reflect the proper short count, is absurd. And I would say to Robert Cook, you'd make me feel a lot more certain about your estimates if you'd be willing to sign a declaration under penalty of perjury to the effect that Finra's estimate of share count, including short counts, are accurate. And by accurate, I mean by within 5%. So, 5% plus or minus, I'll consider that to be on the money. So, if you believe that your work product can withstand that type of scrutiny, Mr. Cook, just sign a declaration under penalty of perjury. I, Robert C. Cook, declare that the estimates of share counts, including short share counts provided by Finra or relied upon Finra, are true and correct to the best of our knowledge and are accurate within 5% of the actual number. Something like that. And if you sign something like that, I would feel a lot better. But at this point in time, I don't even see you taking responsibility to do an audit to find out the numbers, let alone ascertain and certify the accuracy of your own numbers. So, as you're not willing to certify or take a stance as to the accuracy of your numbers, how could anybody believe what you're saying? So, that was number 14. And also they refer to 1212 as a date, as the date they're referring to as the 2.65 million short shares. And why they were short, who knows? Should they have been short as of that point in time? Probably not. But how about 1211, 1212, 12.9, 12.8, 12.7, 12.6, all the other days? What about the short counts there? And why haven't they provided those? And why weren't estimates done, or were estimates done? Again, more suspicion created by the very existence of the document, the lack of clarity, the attempt to shift focus away, and ultimately the evasion of the ultimate question, the unwillingness to provide a competent, qualified, certified share count. So I'll continue to follow this nonsense and FINRA, and I hope others comment too. But I found just on first blush what and by the way, there's other sections, but I stopped at this point in time because I thought that covered the the parts that I wanted covered the most. There were a couple other, I think it was 16, 17, but some of that was redundant of the prior FAQs. And I think they front loaded the issues they wanted to address. So I dealt with it that way. But it was very unimpressed, as I've been unimpressed with the other FAQs. And again, this had to go through general counsel's office. So legal department reviewed it. The top brass would have reviewed it. And again, this is just a clear attempt while they're under pressure to divert attention. So I want you to all take it as such. And since we've gone 13 minutes already, that means I got to do a separate video for the other one. So anyway, be well. Hope that clarified my position on this piece of garbage by the scumbags. Take care. Have a great day. And I'll do a second video on the other topic. And now I'm